Hello my beautiful badgers, Messicoda back again with another classic game dev interview. I'm joined by Jason Booth as we play about with Microverse Roads, and this video originally came out at the end of 2023. And since this video was made, there's been loads of updates to Microverse and Microverse Roads, including fixes for Unity 6, the new foliage renderer compatibility, new spline tools, you name it, they've added it. Now why am I going back to old videos with Jason Booth? Because, well, every interview with Jason Booth is hilarious. Not only that, there's a massive sale going on in Unity from April the 17th where you can pick up Microverse Roads for as cheap as chips. So sit back, enjoy, and I'll see you all in a moment. Everybody sitting at home in front of your Google Watches, your Alexa microwave PCs of the future, give a warm and shader-tastic welcome to the legend, the singer of job interviews, the man himself, Jason, don't call me Unity Booth. Hey buddy, welcome back to the stream.
Glad to be here.
Now, before the intro, we spoke about singing. So before we get into the full interview properly, what was the job interview where you had to sing, and what song, if you can remember, did you have to sing?
For Harmonix, and I think it might have been a Cyndi Lauper song, like "Girls Just Want to Have Fun" or something like that.
I don't know that song. How does it go?
Very, very tricky there.
It's worth a shot.
You know, if you're going to make games about music, you got to be able to play music, you know?
But no, I don't understand, Chase. Like, if you're making a game about music, you might have to be a good musician, right? Like, you might have an ear for music.
Or at least understand it,
yeah,
you know?
But why sing? Like, you could be the world's worst singer. Like, you could...
Well, it doesn't matter for karaoke. I mean, the whole point is, like, you're making karaoke games. If you're, you know, if you can't, like, play the game and have fun with it, then you're not fit for making it, you know?
So did you have fun in the interview?
Yeah. Those games were great. You know, we shortly switched to Guitar Hero after that, and then that blew up way more than we ever thought. So that sort of turned every direction the company was going in. But yeah, I mean, you know, it was the kind of place full of musicians and full of people trying to make social games. So, you know, like when we did Dance Central, we sent the whole team to dance lessons every week.
Every week?
Yeah. And you should have seen how ripped the QA testers were, because they'd be dancing for like 8 hours a day. So, you know, they got ripped.
Wow. That's the best QA job ever.
You know, it was really funny, especially when things were still kind of initially blowing up, because people would come into Harmonix, and on their first week, they'd often get sent out to like California or somewhere to go sit on a movie set with a bunch of famous people, because the rock band was going to be in this movie, right? And so, like, being your first week there, you're the most expendable person, so you would end up getting sent out on these things. So a lot of people who came in, you know, would like immediately get this crazy experience before they even really settled down. Whereas the more veteran people, you know, we stuck around to get things done. So it was kind of a funny place to work. I mean, it was a very unique place anyway. We had like band rehearsal rooms and PA systems and lighting, you know, and all the kind of stuff you could want. And bands, you know, could take, if you were in a band, you could take a sabbatical and go on tour.
No way.
Yeah, because people who were in bands didn't want to give up touring. They just needed a normal job, you know, so the company would make allowances for how you would go about doing things like that. So like one of the bands, Bang Camaro, which was originally featured on Guitar Hero 2's Extra Songs, they were actually a bunch of Harmonix people. They formed a band to make music that they thought would be great for Guitar Hero, and they ended up touring with like Motley Crue and the Scorpions and all these things. So they would go out on like real tours in stadiums and then come back and work, you know.
That's just madness.
Yeah.
Oh my word! I like because the getting to the start that the karaoke was the first thing Harmonix was doing before
No,
Band Hero and Guitar
that
Hero
was
and
the
stuff.
first thing that I joined. They were doing karaoke. But they started out, the first things that they did actually were not video games, but stuff for Epcot Center, like musical interactive things. But then they realized that's only one customer and we're only going to reach so many people. So they switched into video games, did a joystick music making thing that was kind of weird, and then did frequency and amplitude, or amplitude and frequency, or no, frequency and amplitude, which were like their original beat match games, which are great games, but they sold so badly that Sony came back to them and like they were like, I think we messed up the marketing or something, because the games were getting reviewed really well, but they just weren't selling. So by the time we got to Guitar Hero, we thought, all right, we'll make this thing, but it's probably not going to sell just like all the other ones we made. So, and then of course it blew up.
That's madness. That like it goes to show that these PR marketing companies and stuff that you've got, either gonna make or break you if you don't go viral. But then if you do go viral, you don't need them at all because like you're doing their job.
Here's the thing is those companies are gatekeepers of the norm. Like for instance, The Sims, huge game, right? EA tried to kill it many, many times, but because of Will's contract, they couldn't, because they never thought it was going to do anything. Guitar Hero would not, nobody thought that was going to do anything. Minecraft was like one person. A lot of these things that totally reshape the industry are done in spite of what market surveys and stuff tell you. So, when I work on products, I'm just trying to think of something really cool worth doing. And I don't really worry about whether I'm going into a red ocean or blue ocean. Like creating Microverse was going right into a red ocean, right? There are so many terrain creation tools, but I just knew I could do something that was way better. So I just did it, and didn't really care about whether it was a red ocean or blue ocean. If you know the red ocean, blue ocean thing. Red ocean is like where there's lots of competition. Blue ocean is where there's like something new. And, so for me, it's like if you have a strong vision of something, you go for it more than anything else.
Well, with Microverse, you're not only competing with other people and stuff, but Unity's own built-in solutions that they
Oh, but
eventually
they
started
don't
to roll
really
out.
have a built-in solution for doing
Uh,
what you know, like they have a painting tool set which is fully destructive, right? Microverse is completely real time and completely non-destructive, and is designed so that you can edit everything up to the very last moment you ship the game. There's never something you can't change because you spent too much time making it.
I was about to get into the Unity. Not, they've got their own terrain, and if people look at Unity and go, okay, I want to do terrains without really knowing much about what all of these assets do, they'll go, well, one thing's as much as the other.
Right. I mean,
And
in truth, like you can get it done on any of these assets, right? Like, but the question is, to me, so like, here's the thing: people in the store, especially like hobby devs, often come to terrain first because they want to build out their world and
yeah,
see some progress, right?
and they want to make
But
a massive, shiny, pretty world.
yeah, sometimes it's, kind of ridiculous of like, I'm going to make an endless world or whatever. But most games actually don't need that. What they need is handcrafted content that matters. And so you want your tools shaped around getting as many iterations as possible and as fast as possible. So when you have destructive workflows, ones where you generate something and then like you go and you tweak it all, but then if you want to undo something, you have to like, restart again, or you lose changes and things like that. Well, you can't spend a lot of time to really handcraft everything, because as soon as you need to change something big, you gotta, it's a big cost to make changes. So with something like Microverse, everything is editable all the time. It's all non-destructive. You decide you want to move a town, you can move it, and the terrain can form around it and everything. So, it's really focused on, not kind of these cool features of like, now I'm gonna apply erosion to everything and generate this mountain, but rather like, no, I want the mountain here, I want the tavern here, I want the path going between it here. So you're really like focused on level design as opposed to proceduralism and world design, or not even world design, but like, like I hate games you go into and it's just a giant procedural world of kind of semi-repeating patterns and there's no content. Like that's not fun. Um,
You mean I'm going to make a game, but I don't want to spend any time actually making any content for the game. So the game is you make the game yourself. You are the content creator. It's an open world survival game.
That can work if you're Minecraft and dreams, but you got to build a game around that instead. But so yeah, so the whole point of this tool is just that everything in it is always updated in real time and always fully non-destructive, so that you can just work at the speed you think. And everything's stamp based, which means everything automatically supports things like biomes. It's not some separate feature. It's just intrinsic to the design to support multi-terrain and biomes and everything. And and also like there's never a dialogue that pops up and makes you wait, right? You're never baking anything. It's just all real time all the time, right? And I've got it now where it'll work on very large worlds and still, be fully real time. I have people doing 64 terrain tile worlds and stuff, and it's all still real time when they adjust stuff. And so that was kind of like, with every product, I tend to have one thing, like whether it's technical excellence or some overarching thing I want to explore and push. And so that was the angle on that, right? Is just pushing everything into real time, no baking, right? And I was literally not going to do the product if it couldn't do that.
Is it? I mean, I'm wanting to know what's going on under the hood, but as you are the shader shenanigans man, is this shader shenanigans that's doing all this magic here, or is it something else at play?
Absolutely. All the CPU does is schedule stuff for the shader. Now, in the new road system that we're going to be talking about, it actually does that, the mesh bending in on the CPU in jobs. And the reason it does that is because essentially there's a bunch of cores sitting around doing nothing when Microverse is updating. So I can use those to do road edits while you're computing all of the landscape edits so that they can run in parallel.
It just sounds like you just said, I do a load of magic and then things happen. That's what my brain translated what you just said to me.
I mean, it's just, GPUs. So here's the thing is object-oriented programming is incredibly slow and inefficient on modern machines. Data-oriented design is an attempt to fix that by basically paying attention to how the machine actually works. And GPUs are designed for incredible numbers of parallel computations. So essentially, if you're data-oriented designing everything and using the GPU to do all these massive parallel calculations, then you can do a lot. And most of the other things you see out there, they do too much on the CPU. They, even if they do it on the GPU, they're just doing like some aspects, not the whole thing. And that's how I'm able to get it all real time, is just I write all this stuff in the fastest way possible. Performance is a feature, and people don't realize this a lot. They're like, well, this is fast enough and it works. But if you can make things go at really, really, optimal performance, it means you can have more features. So not only does having performance turn what is in most of these other assets a process of preview windows or preview versions and then baking things, it just makes it all real time. So all that goes away, right?
Do you need to have a really powerful graphics card then to do?
I do everything on my laptop. So, the video you're watching right now is me on a M1 laptop. And this is actually, that video is rather old. I've optimized it significantly since then.
So I didn't need to buy myself a new graphics card, is what you're saying?
No.
That was a waste of money. I should have stuck with my 1070.
I mean, I mostly use kind of middle of the road hardware because it keeps me honest when I'm writing stuff and forces me to optimize and write things that are efficient.
Right, shall I read you a bit of chat? What's going on in the chat? Because chat are typing away before we
Sure.
jump in and play about with Unity. Third section, interesting week. What happened? As we were talking about Unity right before we started the intro. We'll get on to the Unity week in a little while after Jason's had a bit more limoncello. Unsub button says, small tiny request. Please make all your awesome assets available for Godot and Unreal Engine. Now, get some of that Unreal money that they like to give out to convert your assets. Is that going to happen? Are we going to have Microverse on Unreal?
I've spent a little time looking at Unreal, and they already have really good tools with like PCG and stuff. So I think like the cost benefit analysis, their tech is very, very different. So the cost benefit analysis of moving it over is less, right, than some other engines. I've looked at a couple other engines this week and figured out which ones I could potentially port
Ooh.
to. And so, because I think not to get into the Unity stuff because we should go over roads first, but I think it's really important for the next couple years to diversify the number of engines because I think Unity is going to pull this kind of stuff over and over.
Yeah.
So, and then also from like my aspect, like the Unity Asset Store, is like when they did that announcement, sales just died on the Asset Store. And as people move to other engines for various reasons, they're going to pull the customers from it too. So looking at it long term, I'm looking at should I be looking at standalone things that that do interesting game dev stuff and then get used, or should I be looking at other engines, trying to figure out where that goes? Because I'm a pretty well sold on the Asset Store, but it's still not quite enough to live off of, and I still have to take freelancing jobs and stuff like that. So, it would be nice to get to the point where I don't have to do that.
I would have thought that you just do the Asset Store for fun because, like you're
That's how it
game,
started.
game dev god.
Well, and that's how it started, but I like making my own stuff. It's fun. It's more fun than having to, make someone else rich. So, um,
Have you
so
now Microverse Cool Collection, right? $180 full price.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's got like a lot. It's got 446 hearts of people bookmarking it, and
sure.
you've got 41 5-star ratings and 1 4-star rating.
Right.
Have you found that being a pricey asset has actually made any difference to the behavior patterns of people buying your stuff?
You get better customers when you charge more. Um, this is a very old thing. If you sell stuff for too cheap, people treat you like crap through it. When you charge proper prices for things, which I would argue that the prices on the assets are incredibly low. But when you charge real prices for things, people pay you more respect for it, and I think you actually sell better by not underpricing your stuff. I think when people race to the bottom on pricing, people just assume it's crap. So, and keep in mind that $180, so I did the math on this recently, $180 purchase price, my average sale price is $103. So that means that between, with all the Unity sales and things, if you just take the average of what the price is, in terms of what comes to me, it's $103. And then of course, Unity takes 30% of that off the top. And so really out of each sale, I'm getting about $70.
And then you get taxed on that as well.
And then you get taxed on that. And because it's self-employment tax, that's more than regular tax in the US. So I
Oh
basically
wow,
pay European tax rates, but without the free healthcare and all the niceties.
wow,
Yeah.
that's
So
nice, isn't
what
it?
comes into my product, I mean, what actually gets to my pocket is about $35 for one sale of $180 asset.
Whoa,
Yeah.
that's madness.
Yeah. So, That's the thing, and that's why all these companies want to insert themselves into these digital streams and collect on each end and stuff like that because they can just sap everyone else dry.
Wow. Uh, and those wondering about the core collection includes microverse, ambience, objects, splines, and vegetation.
Yep.
So they don't have to buy anything other than roads because roads isn't
Yeah,
included.
well, I mean, you can buy it all separate if you want, which has always been my thing. Most people don't. The core, like Microsplat, people buy separate all the time. Like I'd say, like half of the purchases are individual assets, and the other half are the packs. And I think that kind of made more sense. But basically, core collection gives you kind of a complete world editing system, and then you can buy things like roads and masks and potentially new modules as I come up with them.
Are you still working on Microsplat?
Well, not in the last week, but it's been a little crazy. But yeah, I'm always working on all my assets basically.
Well, even one batch.
One batch, no, I haven't touched one batch in ages. It doesn't make sense for URP or HDRP, so there's no point in continuing it.
Oh, what about Megasplat?
That's long gone too.
Oh,
My main lines now are the better line, better shaders, better lit shader, microsplat, and microverse. And so those
are
I
you
still
still
see.
getting people buying Megasplat though? Because I remember last time we chat, you said there's still use
Occasionally,
cases where people are
and
wanting Megasplat.
yeah, they do buy it occasionally, and there are some games that are even just shipping now on it, so people want access to it, and that's kind of why I left it on the store. But there's like a big thing on there that's like, hey, you probably want Microverse instead or Microsplat, because I'm not really adding anything to it, but it still all works and it has its own look that some people liked better than the other stuff. But um, so yeah.
I always thought the naming would confused me. Right?
Oh, because all my stuff is like micro this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you'd think, oh, the mega one is the big one to get, and the micro
Yeah.
one is the
Yeah.
lesser pack.
Yeah. No, that worked out weird. Originally what I was doing was I made this free shader to give away, like a train shader. And then I had the idea of adding a couple packs to it. And so I did that. And this is all in like the first 2 weeks of dev. And then I launched it. And then I just kept coming up with new ideas and I could make them into new modules. And it grew and grew and grew. And so it became way bigger. But the problem I was trying to get away from is that when you ship these large mega packages, people really don't know what's in them.
No,
You know, like you go and you look at the description and you're like, I don't know whether this has everything I need or not. And it's just like overwhelming. And so by having these separate, you can basically like see each one. I have to write docs for each one and analyze each one as if it's a whole thing. And so it just kind of keeps things a bit more honest. And then people can price together whatever shader they want. But they most like a lot of people just buy the big pack because they're like, well, it's all good. I'll just get it. And there's also a nice thing that happens if you buy individually, which is that you learn one aspect and then you add a set of features and you learn that instead of just being overloaded. Like people who buy the ultimate bundle and have never used any of my stuff, it's like, oh my God, there's so many options. And it's because, I was, at least initially in the design, I was expecting that people would grow their options as they needed features. But nowadays people just buy the big pack and get a little overwhelmed at the options. But
it's a big saving though, isn't it? Getting the
it
big one.
is. It is. Um,
What was the difference between the Ultimate and the Terrain collection from Microsplat?
Train Collection was when I launched when I had a lot less modules, and Ultimate has things like the mesh module and procedural texturing and things that aren't like the train bundle is basically like all the techniques you've seen on a train shader, whereas the Ultimate bundle is like now you can texture meshes and other stuff too, and it's got a bunch more stuff in it.
Is there an upgrade path from the Terrain to the Ultimate?
There wasn't for a long time, but I think I added one recently. Um, so yeah.
And then you've got the Microverse. Don't so chat. What do you mean by games design? How does Terrain Collection compare to Core? Well, Terrain Collection is
Well, they're
Microsplat.
different.
Core is
Well,
Microverse.
we're talking about two different products which have an unfortunate naming convention. I was debating, is it better to have it in the micro line or is it better to make it something else? And I just didn't care enough to think it through, basically. But Microverse is all about generating terrain and placing objects and texturing and things. Microsplat is really just a terrain shader about making the texturing look better.
But they don't conflict. We can use them together.
They work together. They work together.
You'd hope so, from the bloke who made them,
Yeah.
to think about
You know
making it
what's
work
funny
together.
about that is actually getting them to work together is one of the hardest parts of making Microverse, because Microverse like its design wants to be able to add and remove textures anytime it wants, and then Microsplat has this whole texture array process, and so every time you change a texture, you've got to like rebuild all these arrays and stuff. So it's kind of funny because I wrote all the code, but it was hard to get it to integrate well.
I feel you. With my small packages of 500 lines of code, I always find it difficult. So with how many lines have you got going on in all? About 10 million now?
Who knows? I don't know. I mean, any coder like worth their salt loves deleting code more than anything else. So, if I can get rid of some code, it's always a good day.
I love it. Right, I'm inside Unity. I put it in 2022.3.7. And it's built in, not HDRP, so I don't have to worry about all that HDRP shenanigans.
Sure.
Because I still have not fallen in love with Hadoop. I got to tell you.
With what?
Hadoop.
Oh, HDRP?
Yeah, Hadoop.
Yeah. Well, Unity's put a lot of new features in there for 4.5% of their users. That's the uptake on HDRP. So, the rest of us are either on built-in or a version of the pipeline that is catching up to built-in. So yeah, it's a pretty bad use of resources.
So are we gonna be doing the Unity talk as in real time as we're doing the roads playthrough?
Um,
Well,
so yeah, you're
I'm
checking
sharing
out
my
the road.
I'm sharing my screen to you on Discord.
Yeah.
So you can see real
the way
time.
the way this works is just like all of Microverse. It's real time. So if you select a spline and move the points, the road will update, but it'll also update the terrain and everything to carve and everything in real time.
Do I want to put on I'll make it look nice with the fogs and things. Okay. So I've loaded up your roads demo, by the way.
Sure.
If this scene looks familiar to you.
Yep.
All right. So if I zoom out a bit.
And you'll notice that they're like the roads are actual geometry. And they're not just like a extruded plane. So we have things like the roller coaster in there, which you can do with it too. So it'll work with arbitrary geometry, and you can imagine doing castle walls and things like that with the road system.
But no, see, okay. I was doing a few videos playing about, and I was gonna upload a video on the easy roads, and then as always is the way, I like found a few weird shenanigans, and I emailed the developer, and then I got sidetracked, and with ADHD distractions, and I was like, okay, I'll get around to doing the roads video again, and then I played about with another person's road asset, which was great and fun, and then I'll get back to it again. Yet all of them have the problem where when you're making the roads and it carves out the terrain, and then I want to change the road or move the road, I have to then undo and like try to reload the previous save that I had the terrain,
because
and
they're not destructive.
It's so awful.
Yeah. So now move a road in this, pull it up,
Hang on,
whatever you want to do.
I can't even select the road. Hang on,
You got to switch into. Okay, so there's two things here. This is Unity's spline system, and I have a kind of love-hate relationship with it.
Oh.
So if you click on the exact pixel of the spline then it will select it.
Oh my word.
Yeah. So I showed them that, and they said they're going to do something about it. There you go. Now you're in spline mode. You can select knots and move them around.
Oh. So this is like when we were talking to Bart a couple of weeks ago, and he was like, I've got my own spline system because Unity spline system sucks.
There's a lot of usability issues with it, and it was built on the idea that people care about splines, but they don't really care about splines. They care about roads and paths and these types of things. And it's very hard to make it feel like it's native to your system. It always feels like you're, okay, I'm doing something. Now I need to go to the Unity spline system and adjust something. Now I need to come back. And so I did a bunch of experiments when I was working on this to help with that, but they were all a little too slow or whatever. I was like drawing my own versions of them that you could select easier and stuff. So at some point I'm going to get back to that and try to figure out, how to do it better. But grab a control point and
Yeah. So wait, this is Unity's spline system
yeah,
with your shenanigans on top of it.
right.
Right. So I haven't touched Unity's spline system yet.
Okay, so the big reason that I went for this is so that other assets that do things along splines and stuff would all be compatible, right? So if you
Makes
bought
sense.
some kind of traffic control system or something and you use Unity splines, well, great, all our stuff works together. We'll see if that pays out or whether asset store developers just keep writing their own spline tools. I'm hoping that Unity will spend enough time improving it that it'll get to the point that people won't be compelled to do that.
But where's the little nodey bits? Like I would expect that
Oh,
there's
hit
one
W,
here on the
hit W, or select the move tool from the little sidebar at the top.
the the
There you
little
go. You should be able to see them, or do you have gizmos off or something like that?
uh
Why can't you see the control points?
I can see one. So is this one here?
Where?
This little thing?
No, that's that's an icon. They should be little things right on the spline itself.
Yeah, why
Not
don't I
that.
know?
That's a connector.
Hang on, maybe if I go and it turned off.
Do you have gizmos turned off or something like that? You know that big list of.
Can you see my Discord? I'm sharing to you on Discord. Have a look on Discord.
Oh, let me flip back. Oh, okay. I was watching on your stream, but either way.
Spline area, spline container, load of spline path. There's a load of spliney stuff.
Yeah. So they're all showing up?
Oh, that's just weird.
Oh.
Right.
And are you in spline mode or object mode?
Oh, hang on. What is spline mode and what is object mode?
Okay, so right when you select the spline, so see how it has that little squiggly spline at the
This
top
this thing.
of this toolbar?
Oh
And
my
you
god, look. There you
what?
go.
And now, okay, there you go. Now you can grab control points and handles and move them.
Well, they can have made that easier.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, the system is fine in a lot of ways. It's a little over-engineered and abstracted for my taste, but whatever. And they did some good work with like, it being job compatible and stuff like that. Um, but there's a bunch of usability issues as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, you can see as you move this around, even if you pull it up, just like pull a point up, the terrain will come and match up with it.
Oh, hang on. How do I
Just pull
pull?
it,
Oh, okay. Oh, like
move,
that. Oh my gosh.
not the whole road, just the point. There you go. Yeah. So the terrain will conform to whatever you do because it's running microverse, and you can control like the slope, fall off, all those things. You can quickly texture these with different styles of roads, and quickly click all this stuff together and adjust it however you want, and it'll never like break anything. Um, and there's also a system to like populate the road with objects. And there's a way to do it kind of the other way, which is you can place objects and you can say that they're relative to the road. And so then when you move the road around, it will move those objects with them.
Hang on. Wait. Chase, wait.
Yeah.
Okay. At this point now, I've got one of those Jerry Maguire moments, right?
Hmm.
Okay. You had me at hello. Yeah. Okay. This is at this point in time, just this little thing here I'm doing now has made this the best experience I've ever had inside Unity playing about with roads.
Right.
Right?
Because non-destructiveness is like a superpower for level design.
Okay. This is like porn for Unity for developers right now. Okay. Now, how I'm like, this is all well and good. This is all nice. I like, watch me make games and say, like, I want to make dirt roads for fantasy games. I want to be able to have these things running along the side. Every now and again, a bit of detritus on the road. Have a bit of sidewalk, or
So,
or I want to have a dual carriageway.
okay,
Or
so let's just show some stuff. Go to the inspector, and down there where it says guardrails and it says default,
guardrails. Yeah.
down below the spline, see the road script and see where it says guardrails.
Look at my Discord so you don't have any delay. Gonna say.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah,
So
cool.
there you go. And so there's a bunch of you can basically make these like preset items, and you can dial them up and they'll appear along the road for common things. But if you wanted something custom and you wanted
Yes.
it to stick with the road through the edits, if you load up the Microverse content browser, I'm not sure if we put all the content in there yet. Um, if you go to Windows,
Okay. Chase, are you watching the Discord or are you watching the stream?
I'm watching the stream. I
You
need to
got
switch over.
it's,
It's
you
just small there.
you can make the window bigger on Discord. You know
That's what I'm working on.
that. You got
There we
about
go.
a 5-second delay if you're watching the stream.
Yeah, so drag this browser down to the bottom so you can use it with the game
Oh, put it
viewer.
in the bottom.
Yeah. And
Oh,
now if you go to the roads section,
all right. So
no, the roads,
roads. Where's
the
it say?
tab of the
Oh,
browser.
okay. There you
Yeah.
go.
Uh, so if you, let's see here, let's do,
I can make a railroad.
yeah, there's some stuff in here. Um, just go to Microverse Roads and see if we can find like a stop sign or something.
I can make a railroad.
Yeah, there's one in the demo scene.
I can make
Um,
a railroad. I'm sorry, I can't get over that.
all
Okay.
right. So scroll down and see if there's still a stop sign in there somewhere. Oh, there I see some objects. So drag one of these to the road.
Well, just drag it onto the road,
Yeah, just place it where the
like
road
just
is.
like that.
Is that the stop sign? Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Uh,
Drag it. And now just move the road.
Is that what
Like
Americans have
move
as a
control
stop sign?
point of the road.
So now drag the road.
Yeah, select the control point and move it, and our stop sign should go with it if it's set up right.
Right, where did my stop sign go? There, oh my god!
So the object becomes relative to this road, right? And now
No
again,
way!
non-destructive, right? I don't want to go and redecorate the stuff on the road that I placed there. I want it to move with the road when I edit the road.
No way!
And so not only can you dial up these prefab scenes that you're going to use all the time, you can decorate like, oh, this is where there's a blockade or whatever, and then great, we're done. And if you go and grab an intersection piece and move it,
Oh my god!
like
Okay,
grab an
so
intersection, you can just
I
drag it
was just,
around
I
and
was
everything.
just, you got to bear with me because I'm a little bit overexcited at this point.
Right.
Okay, so I'm gonna what one of these things?
Yeah, you could drag a new one in the scene, just put it somewhere not on the other road.
Oh, okay.
drag that over.
Can I control Z? Oh, I can't control Z.
What do you mean?
If I do control Z, it doesn't disappear off my thing. Okay.
Oh, it probably doesn't register a new object creation. Fix it, I
Delete.
guess.
Okay.
Um,
Oh, by deleting it, all my I've upset it.
oh, did it not update?
It.
That's probably a refresh moment I need to.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay. So where do I stick this intersection?
Anywhere there's not currently road.
Anywhere
So,
that is not currently road.
yeah.
Okay.
There you go. So if you double click on one of those yellow balls, it'll start the new spline.
Oh,
And you can edit your road from there. So basically you work from intersections out and then you connect them to other intersections.
so how do I connect it to this thing?
Well, you'd have to make an intersection piece there that they all connect to. So you'd drag like a T section in, and then you'd have to split the spline and connect them up.
All right, let's do that.
Right.
All right, so I'm gonna drag. So I drag this thing onto it.
No, just drag it somewhere.
Okay.
You want the intersection.
Drag it there.
Yeah, wherever. Now, if you grab that road that you just created a second ago.
I gotta tell you, this whole Unity spline thing.
Having
only used it for like 3 seconds, I'm hating it.
Yeah, it's got some annoyances for sure. Yeah, select not that road, the road you just created a second ago, off that one. Yeah, you've got to really click exactly perfect. It's really annoying. And then just drag the end of that to the intersection, and it should snap.
Oh,
right. So you basically just click these things together, create whatever network you want.
So how do I now snip this one to be?
I would delete that road, and I would just start at the two intersections and connect them to this one instead.
Oh,
So split the spline into two splines. I think Unity has some operations for that, but it might be, yeah, it's probably just easier just to.
Then what if I had all of this shenanigans on my road that I don't want to lose?
Well, then you would want to spend the time to split the spline into two splines, or just delete the endpoints off of it and reconnect it, or so yeah.
What if I grab that and stuck it? No.
Well, just delete that control point.
Yeah. Oh, I can delete that. Okay, delete.
Yeah. That's a
delete.
handle.
Fuck. Delete. What am I doing?
You're deleting the handles instead of the control points,
Okay.
but you're eventually going to get there. And then.
Oh, why isn't it wanting to connect onto this one?
That's weird.
It connects onto that one, but it doesn't like that one. Is it because of the angle? If I rotate it like that.
Well, maybe.
No, it doesn't like it.
Oh, that's weird. That's a bug.
Did I break it?
Maybe.
Awesome.
I bet you it thinks it's already connected to it from some previous one, and I'm not clearing it out right. So I'll have to see if I can repro that and fix it.
What if I?
You can select the intersection and create a new.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
it thinks it's connected to that, and so it's trying to maintain that connection. I've got some refresh bug in there.
I broke it. I broke it.
Delete the intersection, and they'll both. Yeah, forget about it.
What did I delete? I deleted something. It's still got a shape around it.
Yeah, you deleted like the mesh or something.
Yeah. Okay.
And
move you around here.
Yep. We'll grab the other one. Yeah, it's a little finicky, huh?
Yeah, man. It's a shame you just couldn't just grab like Bart's spline thing or somebody else's spline thing.
I could have written my own spline thing. I ended up rewriting all of the spline GPU code that Unity had anyway, because it was too slow. So I use all my own spline interpolation stuff on the GPU. So yeah, just drag the control point.
You're going to go there. Now you behave yourself, right? I don't want any nonsense from you. You're going to connect to this fellow here. Yay! You managed it. Now I'm going to click on you, and I'm going to double click you, and now I'm going to drag you onto this little thing. No, I don't like it. Why doesn't he like it?
Is that a connection point?
Did I delete the connecty thing on this thing then? Oh my god, what did I just do?
There's some bug in this version
wow.
that is.
Oh, look at this. We got guardrail is invalid. No, Batman.
All right, it'll be probably easy for me to find. Do you want to cruise over and check out like the train or the roller coaster?
Yes, let's do the roller. Oh, when I get overexcited, my microphone goes buzz, buzz, buzz. Oh, there you go. I get too excited. I'm too excited for my microphone. I do apologize. Okay.
Oh, actually, before we do this, I want to show you one more thing. So collect the road system there that your mouse is right over. If
Yeah.
you select that, and then you go, well, this is a spline path settings which control how it affects the terrain. But if we go down further, or sorry, road system there. So you see how it has a template material? Up, up, up. Next component, the road system component, not the path.
Where am I?
See that?
Oh, here. What? Which one am I looking at?
You're looking at the road system component.
Okay, so I want to be looking at the road system component, template material, asphalt.
Yeah. So switch to your project view and then select that so it'll get us to where the templates are. And then try dragging these other templates on there. I have a browser for this now, but that's in the GitHub version. And you can see that it'll style the roads in different ways.
Oh,
like Chaos has puddles and cracks. And so you might want to zoom in a little bit. But basically, I wrote custom shaders that let you have destruction and weathering effects and raindrops, all the kind of stuff I have in Better Lit Shader, so that you can hook. This will all hook up to environment systems like Enviro and stuff, and then just work.
Oh wow, that's lovely.
Yeah. So yeah. That's cool. It means you can style these things in one spot with my custom shaders, and then turn on, whether you want weathering effects or destruction or whatever, and then just style the whole road like that very quickly.
Now, does that work in HDRP as well?
Oh yeah, it works on all the pipelines. Anytime I write shaders, I do it with Better Shaders, which is my like SRP abstraction. So that way I can just write it once and it runs on all 3 pipelines.
Now, would this work with dirt, or rather than real roads, like dirt roads and?
Yeah, you just different textures, different models, whatever you want. Like if you look at the roller coaster, that's just, that's the same thing. You can select the spline of it and start changing it around, and it's just using different geometry, right? So the system will bend anything. It I did it that way instead of doing the whole like extrude a plane thing, because it's much more general, and then lets you do all kinds of other stuff other than just traditional roads. So you could build like a castle wall builder with this, and then just create a spline of where you want the walls to be, and there you go.
Even with Unity's splups, I'm gonna say Spline UX fun time. This is still gonna say my favorite road system that I've used so far in Unity.
Cool.
Just let alone the secret magic power that you've got. But as much as I want to play about with the roller coaster, how do you add sidewalks?
Oh, well, again, you can put stuff into the system that's designed for like, if you want to have it set up so you're like, okay, I just want to be able to dial up sidewalks or like other features, then that system where you put the guardrails in, you can add, that's completely configurable to add whatever art you want along the sides. And it has like multiple layers of stuff that you can select. So you can be like, oh, I want guardrails, sidewalks, and night lights, right? And you can just dial up what you want on the thing. And then you can add your own pieces to the system if you want. If you want to make, like different types of content that gets bent along these systems, everything is exposed, so you can set up whatever you want with your own art.
So I've gone a bit crazy and basically selected everything.
Yeah, so it's got, and these are like little preset scenes that you can dial up. But again, you can also drag stuff from the content browser and it'll set it up to be relative to the spline. So if you're doing unique work, you just do it that way, and then you can just, everything stays with the spline, right?
So how do we? It said here, main road 2 lanes, two way.
Yeah, so if you want to switch it, you could have like a 2-lane road that is 2 directions and has a double yellow lines.
So if I click on this little fellow here,
So go to 2A, and now you get your other markings.
but it hasn't made it wider.
Well, no, it's still a 2-lane road. It's just, is it 1 direction or 2 directions?
Oh,
1 lane in each direction, or two lanes in the same direction.
I thought you meant like 2 lanes as in 2 lanes either, 2 lanes in both direction.
So the way this shader works is that you just provided these mask textures and everything else is done for you. So you can quickly make up new markings if you want to do like European markings versus, American markings. So Roland modeled all this stuff, by the way, and he's going to be putting out some packs of additional content for the system. Um, yeah, and so hopefully we'll end up with a bunch of content that you can just grab and drag into your scenes and build whatever you want with.
Gotta love Roland.
Yeah, no, the guy's great. He's
He's got
he's done a lot of work for me. I'm always like, you should sell this, and he's like, oh, I'll just throw it in your thing, and I'm like, no, you should sell it because I want him to get money too. So for his work,
and he does. He's got some assets on the store. He's
he
got
does. Yeah,
Genesis for Microverse.
yeah. Well, I mean, I basically built Microverse for him, right? He came to me and was like, he came to me on, I think it was September 26th, and he's like, will you make a terrain system? They all suck. And I just happened to not be doing anything at the time. And by that afternoon, I had the height and texture stamping working. And then next day I did splines and got them basically working. Took me a long time to get them optimal, but I had them working and they were still kind of real time. And then I did all the tree and vegetation stuff. So basically within like 3 or 4 days, I'd figured out whether I could do everything in real time. And then it was just all about polishing and designing and stuff. And so I basically built what he wanted for a level editor because he's constantly putting together things really quickly and building these demos. And so yeah, so he tested everything with me and like just gave me a lot of feedback you know and then with this he wanted a road system, so I was like, all right. And he's like, well, I'll do the models, and I'm like, okay. And that's where we ended up where we are now. And so yeah, you can use these, you connect them together with roads still, but you can, there's merge lanes and all that kind of stuff, so you can connect together. And
I'll ask you, like, how long does it take you to develop a pack like this? And then you just come out and say, like, 3 days.
yeah, it depends what I'm doing. So I actually, all of Microverse, the core collection, minus the object module, because I did that later, was all done in 26 days. And so I tend to kind of sit around tinkering with things, and then I have these waves where I'm like, I'm building a new thing, and I just crank it out at incredible speed. Because I think like a musician, and it's something about capturing the moment of the idea that you have at the moment you have it. And then other things like this road extension, we kind of tinkered with for a while, and I would just kind of come and mess with it, and try to fix some issue we were having or whatever over time. And so that one took longer, but it wasn't what I was doing the whole time. So, um,
I'm loving it. I'm trying to work. How do I? Here we go. Oh man, I'm loving this. This is
just the fact that
insane.
it'll carve out all the terrain and everything, and it just makes the workflow really nice. And there's also like you can tell it not to carve the terrain. So if you look around, you'll see some bridges, and they just have prefab poles on them that appear, so you can do the bridge over water kind of thing, like over there. You were just looking at it a second ago, and you got to turn. There you go. And that's just the road with extra pieces around it to make it into a bridge, right?
This is madness. Madness. I was going to know, do you enjoy making other programmers feel bad?
No, I actually enjoy helping them get to the same speed that I am. I did a talk on practical optimization recently about how you actually should think about optimization that I think came out really good. I had done the talk at a private conference, and basically a bunch of people who saw it were like, you should put this up on the internet. And so I did a version for that. Um, you know, I I think I think it's possible to create solutions very, very fast, to create things that, either like, did any of the other terrain tools out there decide like, hey, we should just do this all at runtime and it should be all like instant? They didn't, because they didn't know it was possible, kind of thing. But I'll just throw myself in the deep end of solving
Oh,
something and figure it out. And I think other people can do that too. I just think,
I've
I don't
lost your
know, a lot
voice.
of companies are coming up with lots of reasons to say no to doing good work.
So, here we go. As soon as I click play, I couldn't hear you
Mhm.
anymore.
Oh, maybe something with your audio.
I've I've broken my headphones. Can everyone
Can you
else
not?
hear Jace apart from me? I think everyone else can hear Jace.
I don't know. Um, so should we talk about Unity stuff? Can you hear me? They hear me, but you don't. Okay. Stop. Um, uh, anyway, do we want to talk about Unity's latest shot in their own face?
Okay. Now people can hear me again? Good. Yeah, give me
Okay.
your view on how this week has gone for you.
So, uh, I mean, it's obvious Unity did not consult with even their internal people before they put this out and should have known better. But I mean, the way they handled it and the comms on it have continued to be a disaster. Basically, trying to paint people as not understanding what they were doing. I think people perfectly understood what they were doing. I think they put out an incredibly complex, confusing system that would bankrupt people, and didn't really think about how they would affect their users, which is pretty norm for Unity, actually. And then now they're saying, well, we took down the GitHub repro of the terms of service that we changed because, you know, we didn't get enough views on it. And you're like, yeah, that's not true. Like, you're just lying to us and trying to gaslight us. They did this in 2019, and there was an uproar about them changing the terms of service retroactively. And then they came back and promised to never do it again and put language in the terms of service saying they couldn't do it on old versions. And so then they took down the GitHub like a little while ago that had the TOS previous, all the changes to it. They basically took that down and then tried to retroactively change the terms of service again. And they're going to do this again in a couple of years, I guarantee it. Because ultimately, Unity is a public traded company now, and the job of the CEO is not to make the best game engine; it's to make the most money possible. And that's what they're legally required to do. And so the people you're going to get into a public company to run a public company are going to be people who do that. Um, my view on all this is I think we need to diversify engine use because right now Unity owns too much of the market. And if they continue to own 70% of the mobile market, then they're going to continue to try to squeeze that market because there isn't viable alternatives. So this week I spent time looking into Flax Engine, for instance, which is definitely got some startup issues and not quite there yet, but feels very much like Unity in a lot of ways, but much less code, much less bloat. There's not 5 systems for everything, none of which work. A lot less legacy code to deal with and stuff. So I spent my time looking at that and the potential portability of things like Microverse to those platforms. That was the one that seemed the most portable because they both have a terrain system, which is better for streaming than Unity's. It's still kind of Unity style terrain, just better done for I think what people want to do with terrain. And then and was able to get the developers to add hooks I needed for things, which is like impossible with Unity. I could shave like 5 milliseconds off of Microverse's update time if I could fix the API to the terrain. There's just so much stuff like that in Unity, and they just never listen or will fix anything. So, and they bloated out to such a large company at this point that their only real thing is to expand into other markets. So, a lot of people are like, well, they'll have more money and they'll be able to spend more money on the engine. Well, guess what? One, money for the engine has never been the problem, right? Like, it doesn't matter how many more people you throw at the engine. If you don't fix the old bugs and you don't really focus on user workflows and what users want, it's not going to matter. And the other thing is that all that money, what it's really going to go to is chasing new industries because that's their potential growth. And being as a public company, they have to sell Wall Street on the fact that eventually they're going to be viable for movies and film and all these other things. And so over the last couple of years, they've spent billions of dollars like buying Weta and all these things, none of which actually helps their core audience who is suffering under 3 scriptable render pipelines, countless bugs, etc. And so I don't think long term that really works out for gamers. I think it works out for Unity if they can pull it off. But so far, they haven't really gained any traction in the film or movie industry, and I don't really think their tools are good enough to do that. So yeah, I think the film. I mean, even Epic hasn't really made big inroads there. They did The Mandalorian, but then basically the people doing The Mandalorian built their own setup for the future ones. So I just don't see how Unity is going to be viable in that. And so because they're not investing in the engine in terms of the things people actually want, so this becomes like 3D Studio Max to Blender, right? Like nobody would have thought Blender would have taken over and ended up being a dominant player versus 3D Studio or Maya. But because those programs reject, I mean, every year when the rep would come from 3D Studio Max to Harmonix, I would hand him a list dated from the first year I got there with all the bugs I wanted fixed. And every year I could just hand him the same list because they never fixed it. Because again, it's not going to move the stock price. So, I think this is a big warning weekend. Like they've pulled back the terms to something more reasonable. I think a lot of people this will be our last game on Unity. I think it's going to be like a air letting out of a tire over time. It's not going to be like Unity just crashes. It's not going away. There's too much value there. But I do think now is the time when other players could come into the market and start building up followings, especially if you're working on 2D games and things like that, which a lot of mobile people still do.
Do you think that you can be a public company and still be a good game development, game engine company?
I mean, we haven't seen it yet, but this is the first public game company. I mean, just the incentives get twisted, right? Like Unity at this point is really an ad company. That's where they make most of their money. And the fact that the rules changed around advertising on Apple's platform, they suddenly lost a lot of money and weren't able to make nearly as much as why we're seeing this move now. Because the base that they have, right, that will pay them on a regular basis is game developers. And, they're tired of seeing mobile games pay like a nominal fee to use their engine, and they want to back into that. And I get that. But at the same time, it's like they're going to squeeze the gaming community for more money, which they're not going to spend on the gaming community.
Looking at these other game engines, I can't help but remember the excitement of using. I can't even remember the name that it used to be called before. It was the Talk engine. It was like XT180 or something, some nonsense.
I don't remember that one.
And then slowly but surely, garage games died.
Right.
And
Engine development is tricky, and you either end up with the Epic model where you have an engine that you've built for your games, and then you realize it becomes a business of its own, or the Unity model where you build a game engine, but then if you're going to do that, you have to keep your team small. Unity made a conscious choice when they were around 250 people to either blow up to the 8,000 they are now or stay a small company. And they went the route of blowing up and becoming an IPO and stuff. And that meant that they not only had to dominate the game industry, which they do very well for certain markets, but also dominate new markets to justify that size. And so, I think once your goal is purely money, it's very hard to be magnanimous and to be the indie darling that Unity once was. So,
is that who this? I haven't seen much of this Flex. Who are these Flex engine people?
Flax is an engine that was developed in Poland. It's very similar to Unity in a lot of ways, but with like a better than Burp renderer. It's all C sharp, but all the C++ code is there. It performance is pretty decent. They have a back end 3% revenue model, basically, kind of same as Unreal, but 3%. It's another public company, which I'd love to find some open source stuff to really dig into, but I haven't liked what I found. But there's a lot of these as Stride. There's other versions of these, like the components you need to put together a C sharp bridge to C++ and write, your basic rendering and scripting and asset importing that way is not the monolithic stack it used to be. The trick is getting users, right? There's a chicken or egg problem there. And so my thought is what I'm doing now would be effectively charity work, right? So I've talked to the Flax developers about possibly doing a version of Better Shaders because they don't have handwritten shaders, but doing a version of Better Shaders and basically donating it to them so that their engine just has a good shader authoring system ready to go that is, like a surface shader kind of thing right out the bat. And then, if I was going to try and do Microverse or Megasplat, Microsplat, I'd have to, look into that a lot more. I've looked into Microverse and how hard it would be to port and stuff like that. But the idea would be donating some of my time to help there be competitors for Unity so that there's a better landscape out there as opposed to making raw money from it because there's just not going to be a lot of customers. But you're not going to have a lot of customers for an engine until you have the ecosystem around it. So that's why I would consider things like this. And I'm still looking at other engines too, and trying to figure out, is there some combination of, money to do the work versus just doing it as charity that, makes it a little better. Because right now, like, I wouldn't make any money porting to Flax. But, if it helps another engine come out that could be a nice competitor to Unity, or in other ways, then that could be advantageous long term.
Who are the other engines that are realistic than what you've seen so far? Because we talk about Unreal, but we're talking about what's the realistic ones?
Well, I mean, Unreal is the most realistic. None of these other ones are really ready, but they've got solid bases and stuff like that. Like Unreal is production ready and awesome. It's not my favorite development environment because I like doing handwritten shaders, which they don't support, and going. I mean, I'm fine with C. It's fine, but going back to compiling everything all the time feels slow and clunky to me, and they just push everything through Blueprint and graphs, which I'm not a huge fan of. So yeah, I keep every once in a while I like fire up Unreal and play around with it and look at what they're doing, and they have some really good stuff in that engine, and it's a really nice engine, but it just doesn't. Every time I do it, I don't feel like working in it, and quite frankly, the need isn't as great over there. They have high quality tools and workflows. You know, like yeah, I could move Microverse over there and it would be better, but it's not like the need isn't as strong.
Yeah, they're not desperate for it because
Yeah, because they have good.
Everyone keeps on asking about. It's like four times today. People are asking about Godot.
Godot, it just feels like it's already got legacy code to me. Like it's not a clean break. It's like a project that started as a 2D engine, slowly been moved to 3D, and has all these kind of runtime binding issues for speed. So it doesn't feel like if you're doing a 2D game or a smaller scale game, like it's probably ready and you can ship on it, and that's awesome. But it doesn't like there's no terrain system for it. There's like 5 terrain systems you can go find, but basically like and they don't have a marketplace really either. But if I was to create something like Microverse for it, I'd have to first make a terrain system for it. And then on top of that, like everyone in that community expects everything to be free. So how do unless somebody's going to grant me the money to do the work?
Well, they say there's a Godot. Hang on, Dante said it's pronounced Godot. Okay, I apologize for mispronouncing.
It's from Waiting for Godot, the play.
So
I've seen way too many times and never wanted to see after the first time I saw it. Waiting for Godot is a play that actors do because it is very hard to make it interesting. So if you can make it good, then you're a good actor.
I love that. I love that.
Like Giants for music,
Oh my word! They have a mega grant. I thought it was Unreal that have only. So Godot have also got a mega grant.
Yeah, yeah. Epic's very generous with mega grants. So and there's a bunch of other players, but like so there's like the old guard, which is like Ogre and Godot.
I was going to ask you, people still doing stuff on Ogre, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm sure some people are, but there was a round of a lot of engines, and then Unity kind of won that round, and now we're at the point where there could be disruption again. But all those old ones are like they're kind of crufty, right? Because hardware changes and techniques changes and performance metrics changes, and so then you have all this stuff that's around from a different time, So what I was looking for is something more modern, and that's why I liked Flax, is because you go in there, it's already running on the latest C#, right? And you've got like the new C# compiler in there, and like the C++ bindings are really lean, and you can go down to the C++ code very easily. It even has a thing where you can just be like new module, and you can be like C++, and it'll just make a C++ module and compile it. And so it's like very easy to extend. in a way that even Unity isn't. Like Unity is great on the scripting side, but as soon as you hit an API that you can't get Unity to fix, then you just have to work around it.
What was that game engine that was like for web and mobile? When before Unity really hit off, it was like everyone thought it was going to be like what Unity became. It had like a grey interface.
I don't remember. There were so many of them.
Oh,
But
it
basically,
was everywhere. Yeah, exactly.
won that round, right? And now Unity is suffering on its own size and ambitions. And what it's going to do is underfund and under organized. Like it's just not focused on games as their core thing because of what Wall Street wants, right? And they'll they're of course the people in Unity are focused on that and stuff and trying to do their best, but when it's a giant boat and it's very hard for a giant boat to turn quickly. And so either I think we'll see the rise of some competitors that are more direct, or we'll see the rise of different types of game engines where it's like, oh, we're going to do an SDF brick renderer instead of polygons, and we're going to make the whole thing work on tablets because the younger generation doesn't use keyboards, right? And we're going to move all the programming to visual and and we're seeing that already with like metaverse plays and stuff. But so we're either going to see some next gen engine, and I say next gen not in the sense of like the latest technology, but rather in the next generation of creators, right? Who make games that suits their uh, sort of workflows and things, as opposed to the old guard. Like, old people are on Facebook, young kids are on TikTok. Old people use Photoshop, young kids use Affinity Designer, right? Like, there's a changeover, and I think this is what we're going to see over the next 5 years in Unity, is that Unity becomes an old guard engine instead of the indie darling that they were, and the company probably shrinks at some point to a more reasonable size, and then just kind of is able to do, a decent business and everything, but it's just serving uh, it's serving the game development community the way that Autodesk serves the game development community. Do
I
you know what I
love
mean?
how you make me feel old.
Well, we are.
So true. So true.
You the trick is like, how do you recognize uh, your workflows versus who's coming up, and what that means for a market and where do you want to put yourself. So
Uh, Pavel Chibulka, I hope I haven't butchered your name. Uh, what about Stride? It's completely C sharp. Stride and the link that you got
I looked
punched
a
for.
little bit at Stride because it didn't have a terrain engine, and most of my stuff is about terrain. It wasn't a great candidate. There's third-party terrain engines, but no standard one. So then you're like either building your own or targeting some third-party plugin that who knows what's going to happen to it. It also seems like it is not getting rapid updates because it was originally a commercial engine that Unity beat, and they just open sourced it. And so people have been doing things on it and slowly improving it from the community, but it doesn't have like a funded core development team trying to push it forward. So
Uh, there was a question earlier about if you were given a grant to work on any to port to any engine, which would it be? Now, I kind of get the feeling from what you were talking about that it would be this Flex one because it's like the new and it's got terrain.
I mean, that's the most straightforward port. Like it doesn't seem like it would be that hard to port to it, especially because I can put in PRs and change the terrain system so that it, is has the APIs I need and things like that. It'd take a little while to learn, all the ins and outs of it, but yeah, that would be the easiest. So that's probably where I'd start. But again, we don't that they have a very tiny group of people using it right now, and and we've got some upcoming engines about to be released too that people are talking about. So I'm not looking at this as like a quick let me stop making stuff for Unity or stop supporting my Unity stuff. I'm looking at it as okay, over the next 5 years how am I diversifying away from Unity, because Unity is a pretty horrible partner in a lot of ways. It's like everybody I meet at Unity is nice and means well, but they're fumbling the ball constantly in so many different ways. And yeah, so I would like to diversify outside of the asset store, and whether that means other engines or building something which is standalone, I'm not sure. So
I was gonna say, like, standalone, right, has worked well. Like, if you look at World Creator, they went standalone.
yeah, and I think that makes sense for World Creator, where you're mostly focused on creating the actual height map and splat maps and then exporting that out as a starting point, right? Um, for Microverse, it's like, well, how are you going to get your trees in there? Suddenly you're like dealing with the full range of an actual engine, because you want to have your actual content in there, right? And you're not just exporting out a splat map, you're exporting out like everything that goes into your game. So it makes much more sense in the engine, so you can use your actual assets. So as much as I would like to work on that as some standalone thing, it doesn't quite make sense, because what it's designed to do is really about editing your game, not producing, a height map.
I'm just going back, reading through chat. Sengoku telling me off for not asking enough questions. I feel like I've covered the questions so far, Sengoku.
What did he ask?
What? I don't see that Sengoku's actually asked a question. It's just grumbling for the sake of grumbling. He loves a good grumble, doesn't Sengoku? Joseph is asking, has anyone written an engine in Rust yet?
Yeah, Bevy.
What's
I
Bevy?
hear it's quite good. It's not, it doesn't have an editor, but it's like a low-level game engine, all written in Rust, and supposedly very well done.
Oh, I've found Sengoku's question. It was about pillars for the roller coaster.
Yeah, so there's pillars, not on the roller coaster, but there's ones on the road system. I think the reason that they weren't on the roller coaster automatically was, at the time that Roland was making the roller coaster, I hadn't added the ability to have pillars which always stay upright instead of following the spline. So I think he just didn't add them. But yeah, you could also add them as a spline relative object, just like we did with the stop sign, right? And you drag it in where you want it, and then it'll just move around with the spline when you move the spline.
But there will be an option to have an automatic uh, once you've got the models and everything, and you've got all the stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you could add it to the config and stuff. We just didn't do it. So we didn't. I don't think we made struts for it or whatever. So because it wasn't like the point is a road system. We just like kind of felt like he was having fun playing with it, as he usually does, and we just felt like, oh, if we threw some of this in, it would kind of seed people that you can do more than roads with the system, right? There's a train track somewhere. There's pipelines that you'll find in the level 2 that are all done with the road system.
This is my favorite road system. I've got to tell you that I'm not entirely sure you've got all of the functionality that I come to expect in a road system yet, because I haven't played about with it all.
Sure.
But the fact that you don't destroy my terrain, regardless of what else you do, has made it my favorite. I gotta be honest with you.
I mean, once you go non-destructive, you don't never want to go back.
No.
So that's the kind of big focus for this whole Microverse project, is everything real time, everything non-destructive. And yeah, we're I mean, me, I keep adding stuff to things and keep tweaking things. I know I've got some bugs I need to fix, and
You got some new bugs today, buddy.
oh yeah, I got a new one today with it holding on to the old connection, but that should be easy. And then I have one quaternion bug, which those drive me crazy, because no matter how many times I read the math, I don't understand quaternions fully. So
How do I turn a existing this like 2-lane road into a 4-lane without having to get rid of it and then put a new road?
well, you would basically you would have to either chop the spline or shorten it or whatever, and place a 2 to 3 or 2 to
No,
4.
I've got this road here, and
Mhm.
I've got all of my things on the side, and I've dropped things on it. And now I just want to go. You know what? I want this to be a 4-lane instead of a 2-lane with a click of a
There is an
button.
automatic way to do that right now.
That'd be a nice feature.
Yeah. Like you could imagine something where you drop an intersection in and it goes, oh, I know how to hook these up, right? Like it hooks up the two closest ones, splits your spline and everything. But that's, basically like I release things at the point where I think they're more useful than what's out there. And then I continue to improve them based on feedback and stuff. Because once you get more users in there, you start figuring out what's really important to them.
Oh yeah, I love the fact that this is live and you didn't have to wait till like you've ported or made every single feature under the sun ready. Um, but and then the other part of me goes, oh, I'm comparing this in my mind to some other road systems where I
Sure.
can do other features, and they go, oh, it doesn't have this feature that the other road system, and then you go, yeah, but no other road system has these features that this has, so it's like it's easier to get around the things that this doesn't have.
If you're using it and you have something you wanted to do, tell me about it.
I will, but I just gave you
Yeah.
one now. I just gave you one about the
Right.
what the
Right.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna make you a shopping list.
Okay.
I'm loving. What about roundabouts? So this is a
No,
roundabout.
we have one right there.
I can't. Thing is that, and like I know what you're saying, right? About okay, just manually. I would love, right, to do this. Okay,
To do
drag,
what?
drag, and then go plop, and it will just now automatically slice and know that okay, this bit is
Oh,
here, and it will link to
so
this bit,
hook
and
it
that.
all up. Yep. Yeah,
I
I'd
mean,
probably if I did that, I'd probably have a dialogue box that says, "Do you mean to do this or not?" You
oh yeah,
know.
oh yeah.
But yeah, that kind of stuff could all be done. Um, and it could figure out which, uh, not only where to split the spline and stuff like that, but which connections it should make based on the fact that they're close.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I mean that would take you what 2 hours to develop, I suppose.
I don't know. I'd have to write the code and figure it out.
Like the theme tune, sing the theme tune. You can do it. 100% we drag and drop intersections. Exactly. Look, chat all up for it. Drag and drop intersections, automatically doing it for you. I mean that would be another awesome feature to it.
Yeah, the
Um,
trick with that though is you also want one where you take it away. So like if I
yeah,
delete it, it goes, "Would you like me to hook up those roads?" And it connects them somehow or
I
something.
suppose that'd be easier though, wouldn't it? Because like I go, okay, I'm going to
Same
delete
problem.
this, and then it'll go, all right. There's now a hole, but there's a point and a point there, and it go bloop and reconnect, and automatically then do the
Refresh
refresh. Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Chat's asking, how do you stay focused?
When I work,
Yeah.
um, so my routine is I get up in the morning, I do a couple hours of code, regardless. And then if I feel like I'm inspired and moving on something, then I continue to code. If not, I go off and do other things. And I tend to try to catch my own motivational waves. And when I catch them, I move very, very quick. And so my whole thing is not let me do the standard 40-hour week thing. It's like, let me catch the wave where I'm inspired and I can make the coolest thing in the least amount of time. And then the focus just happens naturally because I can't stop thinking about what I'm doing. Um, so yeah, but I've also, I've been in the industry for 30 years. At Harmonix, I was one of the main people they would go to for prototyping anything. And so I've developed kind of a toolkit of how to write code very fast to prove out results and get things up on the screen like right away, and then go back and kind of figure out how to systematize them to be solid or whatever. But yeah, so the Microverse was the longest I spent on an asset before submitting it, which was 26 days. Every
Wow.
asset done has been done usually in 2 weeks. Like Microsplat and the first 5 modules that shipped with it was done in 2 weeks. Better Shaders was done in 2 weeks. Better Lit Shader was done in 2 weeks, and then this in 26 days. And then I just, once I've kind of got people using it and stuff, then, if anybody's used any of my products, you notice I update a lot. And that's because I'm just iterating and trying to fill out all the possibility space of things people want. And I know I've done it right when, like, the first month of this, nobody was asking for anything because they were just, oh my God, I can just move these things around. I can drag a mountain and so it was like this really nice feeling. And it's, and Microverse itself has like a very compact, nice UI for everything. And then with the content browser, you can make levels in seconds. And so people were really enjoying that and weren't asking for much that it couldn't already do. And that's when I've known I've explored that possibility space well. And if I can do that where there's a small UI and learning space, like every day I get somebody who asks me for some feature, and I'm like, you can already do that, just blah 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 blah. And that's when I know I've designed something well, right? When it like has that kind of um, speed and modularity and small UI surface and stuff. Um, so yeah, um, and yeah, if you're interested in coding style or things like that, like you can always look at my assets. But the talk I did on practical optimization is a particularly good one. It'll sort of show you. I literally walk through speeding up code to get it 200 times faster, and it's just typical Unity code in the beginning, and then I talk about how that applies to other things I've done like Microsplat or Kerbal Space Program 2, etc.
Are you allowed to talk about your Kerbal Space Program experiences?
Can't talk about like deep specifics. There's limits to what I can't talk about the actual code and things like that. But I can talk about the process that I use to optimize something. So um, uh, yeah, isn't that satisfying?
This is so nice. Although I did have something weird. Look, if I do this, move this one, I can
Mhm.
make them. Is this normal? Is this intentional?
What?
By moving this one here.
Oh, the spline relative object is moving
Yeah.
because now if you let go, does it snap back?
Nope. So
Oh, okay. I know how to fix that. That's weird. It's what it is because the road system is locking that first handle so you can't move it. But the spline is sending updates of its motion, and then the object is recalculating where it is based on that. But then my system comes and slams it back, and doesn't update it. So yeah, it's an easy fix.
so now they're floating in the sky. Do you have to break everything you touch? Yes, I do. So how do we get
No, it's
our
great.
own roads?
Great for me. Huh?
How do I get my own custom meshes, my own roads and stuff in there?
Oh, if you wanted to supply your own meshes,
Yeah.
that's a bigger process. It's explained in the docs, but basically, there's these configuration scriptable objects that describe the connection points between things. So, like, if you go to go to an intersection or select an intersection and go into the prefab, and I'll show you how it's set up.
Yeah. I'll drop a new intersection down.
Sure.
There you go.
So, if you go into that prefab with a little arrow
Intersection 2-lane circles.
right there, it's right on the bottom. There you go. Oh, you can do it right in the scene, but whatever. Either way. What you'll see is that this has a spline that tells the system where it should modify the train. So that's like the shape that's going to pull up or down with the train. And then it's got these connection points, which are little scripted objects. You'll see them on each side, and they say how the road should come out of it, how it should connect to it. And they actually say what type of road. So you'll notice that these have a config the road 2 lane. So that means
Oh.
when you double click on it, it'll create a road 2 lane out of there. So the intersection is like the spawn master, and then it'll spawn various roads from those points, and then that's how you get your splines. But it'll also let you connect the roads of the same type to those points. So that's how you create an intersection. And then the road itself, if you do like the road 2 lane down there,
Why is this?
actually,
Why is this so easy to do?
what do you mean?
That's like, I was expecting it to be a lot more complex than that.
It could be user proof some. I mean, there's still work I think that could be done on making it easier, but yeah, it's a pretty straightforward system. So if you look at one of these road pieces, you'll notice it's just a regular old piece. But what you can do is if you go to see where there's the collections there in the roads collections, or sorry, roads config in your project browser, roads config, go to config.
Yeah, hang on. Are you looking at the Discord or the stream?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the other one again. Let me catch up to you. Okay, so if you look at roads 2 lanes here and you open that up, what you'll see is that it has 2 default elements, which is basically the one-way or the two-way piece, and then they have these lists of prefabs, which you can add new categories or whatever. And this is stuff they're like little prefabs of scenes that you can choose to get spawned along the road. And these can have a component on it saying how you want to spawn these objects. Do you want them bent? Do you want them to just spawn in place along the spline, etc. So these probably don't have. Oh, it has the bend rules. Yeah, so you can basically determine like, do you want them scattered around? Do you want them, for randomization? Do you want them just bent along like these are, etc. And you can give them chances and stuff. And so then you can build up these little scenes that are very easy to dial up. And also you can dial it up on part of the road. There's actually a thing you can add a marker to the spline to say like start and stop different scenes. So you don't just have to do it for the whole road. You can do it for part of it. So if you just had like a bank and you wanted to put the curve, or sorry, the guardrail on that one curve, you can do that. So these are like the little scenes that are going to spawn when you select guardrails, right?
This is really nice. I mean, 3P games. Are there any specifics about needed complexity to get curves to work well? I think. Well, that's in
I'm
addition
not
to the
sure.
spline rules. But
Well, the spline rules just let you decide like, should I bend this object or should I, place it? Because like if you look at the concrete barriers, you don't want curved concrete barriers, right? You just want a bunch of barriers to go along the road.
in a road segment, does it need to have a certain number of subdivisions in the mesh to get it to curve smoothly? Oh, nice
Yeah,
question.
otherwise you don't have enough vertices to bend, right? So it's subdivided. And then if you go to one of the road pieces, I should probably show you the shader because the shader has a lot of nice controls on it. So I think they might be are they in config prefab or no? That's stuff.
In prefabs, road 2
Yeah,
lanes, solid
road
dotted.
yeah. So like, open that guy, and if you open up the shader on here, so the way this works is that there's just a single texture that you assign, which has the markings on it, and it basically you have 2 channels. So if you put it in the red channel, you get with this current setup, you get white lines, and if you put it in the blue channel, you get yellow lines. And the shader's designed so you can zoom way in and it'll stay sharp. It does have some softness on the edge to do with the paint, but if you go really close to that, you can see that even though the texture is low res, it all stays sharp because effectively it treats it like a signed distance field. And so that means you can use a very low res texture but get very high res results. Then everything else, all the other texturing is done in world space. And you can see you have these different wear channels here. and wetness and puddles
Oh, we can
and
use
snow.
tracks.
Yeah, you can use tracks. So if you want tracks to affect it, you can do that.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome. Going back to Chris's earlier question about making fantasy roads. Oh,
oh yeah, you can make a dirt.
dirt road with tracks on. Yes, please.
Yeah, so if you turn on the where, like where A, for instance, and open up, yeah, there you go. Does this have a where mask assigned? I can't see from your thing. Is there a text?
No, there's nothing in there.
Okay, so we're in the wrong prefab, but all of these have wear masks, and we basically have two of them. We have one which says like where cracks and stuff should be, and another one which says where road wear is. So like at night, the wetness system will use this so that at night, if you're like rainy environment, you'll have that kind of thing where you have the like puddles along the side of the road, but the middle of the road stays like a little drier or like in snow, when snow builds up, you'll get the tires wearing the center of the road but the outside being more snowy. So the wear system lets you do all those kind of effects. And you can reuse the shader for whatever type of road you're wanting to do. So if you're doing a dirt road, you could use it to put moss on the edges and some more dirt looking stuff in the middle kind of
That's
thing.
lovely. I love that.
So yeah, so it's a very nice shader for doing that type of texturing, and yeah, and that's all included. So
Now, David Cool's asking, what happens when you're using low poly assets?
I mean, these are pretty low poly.
No, I think they mean like polygonal. So if
What do
you
I mean?
like the like Cincy's where it's got the weird shaped polygonal style, to try and make detail and stuff.
Sure, it's just going to bend it like anything else. Um, it's just a it's a bunch of math that moves vertices very quickly on the CPU while Microverse is building the whole world.
I'm loving this, man. Really are. I mean, obviously I don't normally like your stuff, but I'm really loving this.
Yeah, I mean, I really do think Microverse in general is the way to design levels if you're serious about content, right? And you're not just trying to build an infinite world of procedural randomness. Um, being able to really get in there at every level, and you can even see the trees moving away.
I know. I feel like going, but Messi, aren't you friends with Jason? You've had him on the stream about 50 times. You're going to be nice to him. So it's like, yeah, well, I honestly, regardless of that, I like Chase and I think he's a top bloke. I think this is Microverse in general is like your best thing, right? Just
Yeah,
because it's magic.
I think the thing about it is that it's a product that really hit well in terms of all my experience of taking all my game engine experience and all that stuff and combining it with what most users of the asset store who are less experienced need.
Oh
I
yeah,
think my first assets were very aimed at the type of developer I am, where it's like there's all this stuff and it's complex. And then I kind of cleaned that up a bit with Microsplat and Betterlit even more so. Betterlit's like very easy for people to dial up what they want. And this one is just like it's super usable, and that's what I kind of love about it.
and you hit the nail on the head. It's a real problem, right? That people have that it's solving that need for, and it emphasizes it because you make your biomes, you can move things around and move them. You're not often going to move your mountains around when you're making your scenes and things. Let's be
Yeah,
honest.
but what you will do is move the tavern that you want tucked into the
Exactly.
hill there and want to adjust the way that the mountain is for the little town. And so like that's the way I think about it is like all these little details. And then the designer's going to go, actually, we need that town over here. Can you move all that content? And if you don't have a non-destructive workflow, then you're like, great, now I got to redo all this and I'm tired and I don't feel like it. And so it's not going to come out as good. So
And that leads me to my next question, which is on the chat. Like, if I've got my my lovely little road here, right, in my village. And I got the houses. But they're not attached to the road. They were next to the road.
Sure.
Right? So if I go down and chuck in one of these things. Now, if I click on that bloody...
Yeah, it's
oh,
bad.
they just need to make the splines like big, nice, big, big
Make 'em
space to
bigger.
click it.
Yeah.
Make it bigger.
Yeah, it's the fact that, I mean, this is the thing. Unity uses their stuff in isolated environments, and then you get into a real environment and you're like, this is not usable,
I
guys.
can't find you,
And
little dot.
yeah. So this is the quality of Unity's tooling.
Yeah, I find it easier just to
I
go and
do have
find the
some.
roads.
If you select the intersection, you can select roads from the intersection, which is a
Oh,
little easier
there you go.
sometimes. So you see on the thing, it has like a, it'll select the one that's north, south, or whatever.
Did I select the wrong one?
So you
Yes.
can kind of find your thing that way. I had a thing where I was drawing extra gizmos on there, but the gizmo system just started getting slow when you had too much stuff in the scene, so I pulled it.
So now, like, if I'm moving this road,
yeah,
the house, all the houses that I've got in my little village don't shift
yeah,
over
but
with
okay,
it.
so do this. Select the house.
Hang on, turn it off.
And now do add a component and do spline relative transform.
Spline relative transform.
And then just go ahead and assign the spline to that.
Oh, hang on, let me click on this thing.
You gotta find the spline again.
All right, so it was bike road 1.
Right.
Okay. So if I click on him and then drag in bike road 1.
Okay. Now move the spline.
All right. Oh, oh.
So, you want to set up row houses along a road and that's the thing, the houses could go in the config and you could just lay down your road of like houses. And you could probably write some little script to randomize some element of it. So yeah, there's lots of potential for using splines as a construction tool and using this system for that.
Okay,
You just love that bug, don't you?
Hang on. There you go. That's more like it.
That's how you want it.
That's what I was looking for.
Right.
There you go. If that doesn't help sell copies, I don't know what does.
So anyway, this is just part of the goal with this thing is like, figuring out, because like we had the little thing where you could, make little scenes, and that's cool. But I just felt like sometimes I want to parent things to the spline, which like Unity doesn't let you do, because it has no concept of that. The spline isn't really even game objects. So I wrote that component so that, you can decorate up an area and still do all your adjustments, which is really sweet. And that'll work for any spline. So you could, hijack that for something else. Any Unity spline. So
I love the Roland advertisements going on.
yeah, he makes the content. He can put the ads on it.
Talking about Roland, Roland gave me some gifts to give away.
Okay.
That's a lovely badger in it. But you know what? I'm going to save some of those for the eventual game jam that I'm doing.
Okay. Yeah.
So what would you say is the must-have Roland companion for Microverse?
Oh, the stamp clip.
Would you say the Ultimate Stamp It over Genesis?
Yeah, because I think Genesis has got a bunch of nice like scripts and tools. It like has like an integration for if you're using RAM, stuff like that. But having a big library of stamps is super nice.
That is true.
So the thing is though is like if you had to choose and you didn't want to, you weren't sure. He has an example pack that's free that has like a couple stamps from each pack. And you could do a lot with that. I mean, I built all the demo scenes in Microverse are done with 4 stamps because I didn't want to bloat out the package with a whole bunch of data. And even with just 4 stamps and all the blending modes and stuff, you could create a whole scene with that. So yeah, but having a nice library of stamps is pretty cool. I also recently added flow erosion to the Microverse system, so you can compute flow for texturing and stuff like that, which makes like a lot of his stamps look really cool because it gives you that nice like I had cavity before, but this gives you the sort of geological flow areas where things have been, you know, falling down the side of a hill forever.
Was saying that then because it's, I don't know, I suppose it's a good one that you said that, because the Ultimate Stampit collection is very expensive compared to Genesis. So it's
That's true.
$100 versus 30, in that regard. But it's,
And you
but
can also just, I mean, it's a lot of stamps, so you can go and,
yeah,
and there's,
but
yeah, and again, you've got a package with a bunch
what
of
is it? 10 million stamps in the collection?
it's
Uh,
it's a lot.
if
Each
I
of those is like 20 something stamps, so it's like hundreds.
Look at that. I'm just showing
Yeah.
on the screen here. So 800,
800.
that's nuts, more than 800. So if I was going to give away a prize, would I give away the $30 prize or the $100 prize? Well, Jason's convinced me. It's the $100. Exclamation mark raffle. So join the raffle. Raffles started. So exclamation mark raffles in chat if you don't already have the Ultimate Stampy collection from Roland. And I didn't realize this, that Roland now has so many assets that I have to go to view results 96 to get to see them all. I mean, that's crazy. He has been prolific on the store. It's a lot of assets.
Yeah, a lot of stamps.
Photo session though, Animation Pro Preview Pro. I use that a lot. I use Animation Preview Pro a lot whenever I'm trying out any new animations. That is my have it in every startup project that I do within there. If you haven't got Animation Preview Pro, then get yourself the non-pro version and see if you like it. And if you like it, get the pro one. And here you go, the free Vegetation Studio Pro extensions, free Stampit samples. I mean, guys, got a load of free stuff on here as well. Oh my.
So yeah,
Other than Genesis, everyone loves Genesis.
yeah, this is basically like tools he developed to work even faster. Like I think he has a road generator kind of thing there where you can snap down some points and it'll connect them all together for you. And he has integrations for like RAM and I think Easy Roads as well if you want to use that, so that it'll bridge the spline data from Microverse to Easy Roads and basically,
Really?
yeah, and basically like it doesn't quite match, but I guess it matches good enough, and then it gives you kind of the non-destructive Microverse thing on rivers and roads that way. Um,
Oh, I'll have to try that. I'll have to try
yeah.
that.
So yeah,
Converting
I'm
my
a big
easy roads
believer in
over.
like whatever solution works for you. I'm not gonna like prevent my stuff from working with somebody else's stuff because I have something similar. Like that doesn't make sense to me. So,
Borok says biomes and presets for Microverse is brilliant for lazy people who already own a bunch of
oh
art assets like nature manufacture packs.
yeah, that is a good point. If you own a ton of assets, like he shipped a bunch of presets for Microverse for a lot of common assets, but it's super nice. You can just, if you have all that stuff installed on your project, you can just slam biomes together really quick.
Google, so we can potentially use easy roads and microserve roads, microverse roads, microserve the microverse roads together. If you're using Genesis, so what is Genesis converting them over or allowing to use both at the same time together?
With what? Easy Roads
Yeah.
or no, it just takes What it does is, if you have an Easy Road spline, it will generate a Unity spline that is bound to it, and then you can keep editing in Easy Roads, but it'll add a spline path to it, which lets it carve the terrain for you. Same thing for RAM. So if you use RAM a lot to make rivers, Microverse will basically make that non-destructive with this script. So now when you move your river, it'll adjust all the terrain accordingly.
I mean, non-destructive RAM is lovely.
It makes it so much better.
That's
So
like, oh,
yeah. So if you already own those assets, then it's a great option, right?
so what happens when Unity comes saying, Jace, we love you, you love us. Come on, let's just put Microverse native inside Unity. What would you say to them?
I'd be like, fine, what are you paying me? Again, I don't think Unity's going to do that. And they are starting on their own non-destructive workflow for terrain. But given Unity's pace, it's probably 3-4 years out at least. And even when they release it, it'll still be years before it's standard. I can build a system like this in 26 days. So, I'm not really worried about Unity competing with me. They're already, copying some of my stuff for their new shader stack that they're working on, and that's great because it'll be a better shader stack than what they have now. Um, you know, so I don't really worry too much about that stuff.
I love that this is my standard question I ask you every time you go on, and every time it's the same answer about Unity are working this, but it's going to be a few. It's Do you know how many years? Because every time you come on, we say the same thing, and they still haven't done it yet.
I don't know, but it isn't what people actually need to build better games in
Oh,
Unity. Um,
if it wasn't
you
for
know,
people like yourself, it wouldn't be usable for a game.
Oh, this train system is like a train system from the 90s practically. Like, the whole back end of it is like not designed for what people want to do. It's not efficient. It's not set up for streaming, it doesn't even use virtual textures or anything like that. It doesn't have a way to look up the train data in a shader so you could do, like in Unreal or something, doing train blending is incredibly easy, like train object blending, because you can just get the virtual texture and like Unity has none of that stuff. So it's a very outdated system. And they do little updates, like they added a new detail scattering mode, which is better than the old one, but I was just kind of like, why? Like, there's so many. Even if I could just get them to fix the APIs to the existing system, it would be a big help. So I don't know
I don't
how
know.
they
Every
prioritize
time I
that.
click a YouTube video, right, if it has any audio at the start, I lose Jason
Oh,
completely. For the
but do
rest of
they?
you, but everyone can, the rest of can still hear him. Uh, I don't know. It's an update on Discord. It's really winding me up.
Hmm.
Now I got to announce the winner, but there was a question in chat which was, if Unity offered to buy the rights to use one of your tools to become standard in the engine, which would you prefer they take? Um, and I was about to say which, and he's going to say same question, but an asset you do not make would love to see a default part of Unity, which kind of like he's like, which is the most useful thing you've made?
Well, no, I think there's actually a question around which makes sense to be in the engine. If I was going to choose any of them, it would be better shaders so that everybody could write shaders and not have to port them between the three different pipelines.
Well,
And it would
wouldn't
all.
that be better if there wasn't three different pipelines?
I mean, they're not going back on that. So as much as I think they should have had one configurable pipeline, which was scriptable, they made their choices and they're deciding to double down on it all. So it doesn't really matter. But what does matter is being able to write a shader and have it run on all three. So if I had one choice of an asset that they bought from me and integrated, that would be it because it is the most useful thing as a base for everyone. Um, if they came to me and said, "Oh, we want to buy Microverse or Microsplat," I think there'd be a long conversation about which bits of any of those things make sense to be in the engine versus which things should be done by, third-party plugins, and how do you want to redesign it to sort of create the best ecosystem for multiple users and multiple workflows. None of this, I think, will happen, but that would be my approach to it, because I think you don't just want to grab the code and just release it. You can do it that way, but if for something to really have its full potential, you want to be able to go and fix some of the Unity APIs and really tie it together well. So yeah, that would be my recommendation if I was in those talks, which I am not.
Would you have Microsplat, like if it was native in Unity, like in the package manager, that you go, okay, Mike, and then you choose in the drop down which parts of Microsplat you would have from the
Sure.
package manager, like, in that. That's how I would see it. Now, I'm too scared to click on the playing another one of Roland's videos because I'll lose the audio with you again. So what I'll do is I'll just announce the winner.
There we go.
You don't have your guitars or musical instruments with you, so could you please do me a drum roll using the power of your mouth, Jason?
No, I'm not a beatboxer. I'll do your drum roll on my computer. I don't know if you can hear it.
God, see, I could hear if it was coming out of your beautiful mouth, but not your beautiful computer. Now, there's an easy way to do a drum roll. You'd stick your finger in between your lips and you blow a raspberry and you go like that.
That doesn't sound like a drum roll.
Of course it does.
No, that sounds like somebody having too much fun by themselves.
This is a family channel. Damn you. Okay, the winner is having too much time, too much enjoyment by themselves. Unsub Button. That's 2 streams in a row. Unsub Button won last week and has now won Roland's Ultimate Stampit collection. Thank you, Roland, for your beautiful gift, your beautiful, beautiful badger. Congratulations, Unsubs. Rigged! It is really rigged. Now, question, is the microphone sounding better? Am I still buzzy when I get too excited? Needless to say, Jason Booth always gets me too excited. So I'm a little bit worried. Have I been buzzy a lot? Sometimes buzzy. Oh. So we've gone from no longer having a constant buzz to only having a buzz when I'm overexcited from Jason. Jace, that you just don't get me overexcited. That's what it is. Maybe it's this thing I've installed. Are you able to not get me overexcited? Is it possible?
I don't know. I don't control your reaction.
Well, you somewhat control my reaction. If you made worse assets.
Right. Well, you did find some bugs today, so I will fix those.
I did find some bugs.
Yeah.
Now, because I found some bugs, am I able to mooch a key off you for one of your toys?
To give away?
Yeah.
Sure. What do you want?
What do you think chat would like? Chat, what would you like? Chat's silent. Chat, do you know what? The scary thing about you, Jace, is that I could have 60 people in chat, right? And I guarantee you, most of the people would already own all your stuff.
I don't know about all, but hopefully they own some of it.
Well, hopefully they'd have the free stuff.
Well, you got to come up with a package to give away.
So it's going to be roads because today was the theme of today. So I was kind of like leading for you to go, it'll be roads, but you didn't do it. So
let me create a voucher here, and I will Discord you this in the background.
Don't do it now, in case I accidentally leak the screen. Do it after the show.
Oh, are you showing your Discord screen?
No, but sometimes I do it by accident because I'm an idiot.
All right. Well, it's in my copy paste buffer, so
there you go. Okay. Okay.
Cool. Well, should we get on with it?
Let's do it. Right. So I'm gonna click on Background voice cancels noises of people talking near you. Maybe that was causing the buzzing. Okay, I've turned that off. Always off background noise cancellation. I don't have people behind me, so maybe that would be better. Okay, reset. Let's reset the prize. So I'm going to call it Sexy Roads. And the raffle is open now. So if you want Sexy Roads, you better click !raffle to get yourself some of Jason's Sexy Roads. Now, question. Microverse objects. Standalone. Because I've got the core one. I always find it, like you said, people get the core and they lose track of what they get because they've got so much. Like when they get the big bundle, you can lose track. So
Yeah.
Microverse objects as an object spawning system, how is this different to all the other ones out there?
Well, trees and things like that, you want to spawn as part of the tree system so they can be drawn efficiently. Objects are actual game objects being spawned in
So
your
by the
scene.
tree system, you mean the vegetation, microverse
Yeah,
vegetation?
yeah, trees and grass and things like that. You spawn into custom systems so that you're not paying the full cost of a game object for them. Objects will actually spawn actual game objects, and you can use all the same kind of spawning rules and sign distance field functions and stuff like that to spawn apples around trees or whatever you want to do, but then have them be playable objects.
Could I be using this for like large stuff as well? Is this like just like for small, like apples?
Well, yeah, as long it depends on how you want that stuff done. So if you were to like spawn a house and it was to spawn on a hill, well, it would probably intersect the hill,
Oh, okay.
right?
You answered my next question, but carry on.
Right. But if you're spawning like, gameplay stuff that's smaller, then it works really well for that. You can use it to spawn like large rock structures and things like that you want physics interaction with because the tree system doesn't support that. And then you'd get actual like mesh collisions and everything. And so that can be very useful if because like boulders you want to kind of like random the rotation and stuff them into the terrain a bit and then just have it all kind of be there. So that's the type of stuff you would probably spawn with the object system as opposed to say houses, which houses you want to place. Plus, I'm not a big fan of trying to proceduralize things that you should be taking care in placing. And I feel like if you're making a game and it's like, let's say it's a role playing game, then you should be placing houses and like the little town structures and stuff by hand. You should have good tools to do that can form the terrain and things like that. But that's where I think people should be spending their time as opposed to like, oh God, I got to erase the path of this river that I did and redo it. You know.
Procedural tools shouldn't replace level design.
Yeah, essentially, they're brushes to get you most of the way there. But when I play a game like Zelda, what always is interesting to me is the hand created stuff. It's not the fact that the world is big; it's the fact that it's filled with stuff that people have cared about and made interesting content with. You know.
So if I want to make a mountain, right, and
Mhm.
I want to have let's do this scenario from scratch, right? So I'm making a mountain, and I want to have snow on the top of the mountain, right? And it's not so snowy at the bottom, because this is a massive mountain, right? Massive mountain. And then I want to place objects that are not for the snowy part on the bits that don't have any snow down the bottom, and the parts that are snow at the top, I want to have the snow related objects spawned there. So,
So any previous thing can filter to the next thing. So first it passes through heights. Once you have heights, you can then filter not only on the height, but you can filter on curvature, flow, and what do you call it, angle. And so then you texture with those rules, but then once you get to that point, you can filter on texture as well. So you could set up your spawner to spawn one type of object on certain textures or in certain slopes or whatever you want. And all spawning stuff, all of the microverse system works on the idea of a stamp, which you can constrain to a spline or an area, and you can move it where exactly where you want it, shape it. You can even paint fall off on it with like a painting system. So all the stamps can be constrained by these things so that you can define area, you can define rule sets based on texturing, slope, whatever, for whatever they do.
So I can have like if my stamps exceeds a certain height, it will automatically have snow on the top of that mountain because the
You mean
stamp
like
is.
for texturing?
Yeah, like I've
Yeah, like a
got.
texture. Sure.
So I've got
Yeah.
like you got this lovely picture here on your
Mhm.
Microsoft, right? And then once I exceed a certain height, I want the snow to be coming on the sides and stuff. And
So that actually that snow was all done in the shader in Microsplat, the snow feature. Um, but you can also, because Microsplat has a dynamic snow system so that the snow can build up and go away, right? But if you're doing a static scene and you're using Microverse to do the texturing, you might, if your level's just in snow, then you don't need a dynamic snow system, right? So snow's
oh,
kind of an interesting issue
what
because
if I wanted the top part of the mountain to always be snowy, but the bottom part to be dynamic?
you could do that too. It's just, however you want to set up the rules.
Oh wow! So you can get lost by how much power you get with this stuff. All right,
Oh
we're
yeah,
gonna.
I mean, Microsplat has a masking system for effects, so you can say like where rain doesn't appear and where snow won't accumulate, or what's the maximum amount it will accumulate, or the minimum amount it'll ever have, so that you can handle all of these cases. Because to me, it's really important to handle those custom cases, right? Of like, oh, I have this building. Why is it snowing in the building? Well, okay, I'll mask that out, you know because that's actually what's going to get you to shipping, right? And a lot of stuff on the asset store doesn't quite get you to shipping. It's like it solves a great problem, but then like it has these things it doesn't do, and you're like, well, how do I get it to not do that thing, or um,
Oh, I love the snow inside the house. What A game was I playing the other day and there was snow in the house? I can't remember. It was a big one. Right, we got to announce the winner. While I announce the winner, does Jason Booth use JSON to save all his serialized data? What would you use if you wouldn't use JSON, Jason?
if I wasn't using JSON, I'd use
Yeah.
Protobuf or there's a lot of different systems for serialization. At least JSON is like human readable. I hate XML. Uh, it's just ugh. And but I always, whenever I write a JSON parser, I always modify it to support things like comments.
I still remember when I woke up one day to be told that XML soap is the future and everything will always be XML soap forever.
Ugh, yeah,
That didn't last
glad that
long.
didn't come true.
All right, the winner is unsub. I'm only joking. It's Googly FB. Congratulations, Googly. You have won. Please speak up in chat or you don't claim your prize. Oh, wow, says Googly. Congratulations. Now you got votes. I hope that you've already got splines and you've already got Microverse. What does he need to have? Is it just splines and Microverse?
Lines in Microverse, but the core collection is really what you want because
The core collection is what you want.
you kind of want the vegetation and all that stuff too. I had some people who were, because I asked some of my early users, like, do you think I should modularize this? And they said, yeah, because some of them were still using like Vegetation Studio to do their vegetation work. And so they had that running and they were just using my stuff for texturing and height maps kind of stuff.
Well, there you go. Interesting. I'm going to ask Googly, what JSON assets do you currently have? I have everything except this latest one, I think. So it's perfect. Oh, well, there you
Oh,
go.
great. That worked out.
It couldn't have been better. There you go. Jace, when are you going to fix the bugs that we found today? How long does it take you to fix these? If
I'm not gonna do that until
it took
Monday.
you what? It took you 3 weeks to build the entire thing. I'm assuming a bug takes you 5 minutes.
Depends on the bug. The more math involved it is, the worse.
If there's no quaternions involved.
There's no quaternions, then I'm good.
Okay.
No, those mostly seem like pretty simple ones where it's like not releasing a reference. I think it keeps a reference to which point you're connected to, and I think there's a way when it detaches that it doesn't clear out the reference, and so it's thinking it's still attached to the old one, and so then when it connects, it just snaps to it. So that should be an easy one. The other one with the handles thing, that should also be easier. I just have to make the update on um, uh, the spline relative transform happen a bit later when my system has already corrected the spline. So both of those should be pretty easy.
Now, how about the new feature request about dragging and dropping an intersection or a road, or and then having it like a roundabout intersection, and then having it automatically cut up the spline and connect?
I mean, I'd have to think about it, how I was going to do it. So, so yeah, I keep working on my assets all the time. So if you're worried about that, just go look at the change list and see how much I'm pushing new versions and adding new features. So,
Is
yeah.
my request of being able to change a 2-lane into a 4-lane with a click of a button gonna get included sometime in the shopping list?
Well,
Or
so that idea is interesting because if you were to say drop the 2-lane to 4-lane intersection in the middle of an existing road, which would do that, uh, your other road is incorrect and also connected to, like, because you have a 2-lane road there that won't connect to the 4-lane,
yeah,
right? So you'd probably have to handle that as an edge case where it's going to either delete that other road because it doesn't connect, or just leave it there, you know, something like that. I don't, because basically, like, it may be connected to another 2-lane, and so you can't just like turn it into a 4-lane because it's connected to something that only has 2 lanes. So
unless you've got uh, some logic on the lanes that say I'm a 4-lane and I'm a 2-lane object. What is the intersection or the conversion object for a 4-lane
right,
to a
but if
2-lane?
you just switch the road to be a 4-lane and it just switches back to be a 2-lane, then what's the point of it? You know what I mean? Like, you've placed an intersection that goes from 2 lanes to 4 lanes,
Yeah,
and then it goes, well, I need to make this connect to the 2-lane up there, so I'm going to go from 4 lanes to 2 lanes, right? So there's just edge cases like that. They would have to be thought about like, well, what's the right workflow if I drop, a piece that doesn't connect? It's like, it's easy to imagine when it's like I drop a 4-way and it just assigns the 2 roads to it and the two to the, and I have the 2 other sides open. But when they're actually different types of roads that don't have connections between them, then it gets a little complex. So that's something I'd have to just think about and decide, is it worth doing, etc.
oh, it's worth doing, Jason. But when is it worth doing? Now
Oh yeah,
in like,
priorities against
yeah,
all the other
exactly.
things that you do. So,
I love Gilda
uh,
saying, I'm really happy Jason doesn't like quaternions. It makes me feel better. Jason
here's the
is
thing.
human.
Here's the thing. People think I'm this like shader wizard,
You are.
whatever. Like, I was thrown out of high school. I do not have a mathematics background. I went to a music school. I did not take any math, you know. Like, I'm self-taught entirely with programming. I mean, I had great people around me who helped, but um and my math is terrible. Like, I made it to geometry too, or did I even do that? No. I just had algebra 1 and geometry and algebra 2.
How can you be a shader god and not be good at maths?
Because actually, most of it isn't about math. It's 0 and 1 numbers being multiplied together, which have very kind of simple properties. I had to figure out like matrices, a little bit of trig, understand like sin and cosine and these basic functions, which like when I started learning that stuff at like 35 was not the easiest. But I still get screwed up on math all the time, and sometimes I find a way around it, a different way to do it, so it doesn't need the math, or I just struggle through it and eventually figure it out, and then immediately forget the like the bit that allowed me to figure it out. Unfortunately.
So my fear of shaders, because I'm thinking that, oh, if I don't know maths, I can't do shaders. If I'm not
It's
good at
over.
math, because I look at Freya's videos and tweets, and
Right.
Freya's always doing these amazing math stuff, and I'm like, oh, that's okay.
Most of what you're dealing with in a shader is numbers between the ranges of -1 and 1 or 0 and 1. So, they have really cool properties in that. So, like, if you want to make a curve, you have some value that's going between 0 and 1 and you want to bend it, multiplied by itself, you get a value that now goes, from 0 to 1 with a downward facing curve. If you invert it and then do that math and then invert it back, well, now you have an upward facing curve, right? So, there's a lot of things like that, like contrast curves and all these things that are really just like all 0 to 1 value maths, and they're not difficult. And then, there's you got to understand matrices, but matrices, when you select an object and you see that red, green, and blue, move tool, that's a matrix, right? So the red channel is the direction, the first direction vector of the matrix. The green is pointing up and the blue is pointing sideways. That's what a matrix contains. It contains three vectors that show the orientation of an object, right? So like there's not that much you have to get across to be able to do most things. And really all you have to think about with matrices is that they convert something from one space to another, right? If I want to be like when I model something and it's all around the pivot, that's like the local origin space, but I want to put it into the world. So multiply it by the world or the object to world matrix, right? So like it's not that much math to get good at.
Well, I tell you what, you've you've made my day, because like then I think like I might be able to get my head around that. I might be able to give this a go. Although when you were describing uh Matrix, all I could think of was Keanu Reeves's head popping inside my Unity. So
Sure. Oh, no, sorry. But a lot of shaders is like lerping textures together, right? Based on another texture. So it's like I have some noise and then I'm going to blend between a normal map, which is the road, and the normal map, which is cracks, right? And there you go, and use that noise to make puddles or whatever. And so like, yeah, I would, if you want to get good at shaders, I would start in a graph if you're more of an artist thinker. And then you can look at what code it's outputting, things like that, if you want to learn how to write code shaders, and then compute is just, hey, this isn't about pixels anymore. It's just the job system on a GPU, right? And compute shaders are super powerful.
would you recommend Shading Graph or Amplify to someone getting started?
I don't think it matters for learning. I think Amplify is a better shader graph, but you could learn in either one. And you can follow like Unreal tutorials in Unity's shader graph or in Amplify, and they'll mostly work. So
Oh,
like
really?
there it's really all the same stuff. It's just the shader language exposed as nodes for the most part.
Xandri, we're just talking about maths geniuses, and that you don't need to be one. And it turns out that Jason Booth, the legend that is Jason Booth, said you got kicked out of high school.
Yeah, I was starting out of high school on the third day of 12th grade. I got my GED and then went to music school and then dropped out of music school on my last year to start Turbine.
That's just crazy.
Yeah. So I didn't go to school for any of this.
You're just naturally a genius, mate. I didn't say that.
I'm just tenacious.
I love
That's really what it is.
tenacity is what you need.
Yeah.
Um, Dowie's saying, Messi, if you like, I will spend a day to show you the basics about shaders. Now, I gotta say that Dowie's been trying to teach me and get me comfortable with shaders and even HDRP for years now. Davy was like, Messi might need a week. It's been years Davy's been trying to get me to not be scared of playing with shaders, but there you go. What kind of music were you, Xenguis is asking?
Oh, did I play in college or?
Yeah.
So I sort of funky jazz is kind of my thing, like things heavy improv with, funk kind of grooves. So I was a bass player in college. My favorite bassist is probably Rocco Prestia from Tower of Power, or more modern ones like Joe Dart from Wolfpack. Um, yeah, I like funky stuff and improvisational stuff. And I spent years touring around with a three-piece jazz band, to helping them with whatever they needed. Probably the three best jazz players I've ever seen in my life, and so I've produced albums for bands and done all kinds of stuff on the side. Music was always my side gig when I was in the game industry. So
If you didn't think that Jason Booth could get any cooler, well, it always surprise you how cool it can get. I love jazz. I mean, my one claim to fame in life is that at the Jazz Cafe in London, it was my mate's birthday. We went down there. Pee Wee Ellis, Fred Wesley were there, and I was saying to my friend, like, do you wanna go back and meet them? And he was like, yeah, but how are we going to do that? I said, don't worry, come with me. And went to the stage right behind and where there was after the gig had finished, and they're like massive, like 10-foot bodyguard, and like it's like, so you can't come in. He goes, oh, we're here about the movie. Oh, come in then. It's like, there you go. It's like, my mate's like, what movie? We're making a movie. Are we? Yeah, we're making a movie. We need them for the soundtrack. Don't you remember? Oh yeah, we're making a movie. So,
you just Jedi mind tricked your way in.
and as soon as we sat down and opened our mouths, they knew within the first millisecond. We didn't even need to open our mouths. They're like, then they just wanted to come and say hello. They're not doing
Right.
nothing.
Yeah.
But they were so sweet. They were like even invited us to come back and have breakfast with them because we'd never eaten grits. We didn't know what grits were.
Oh,
And they were like, how
I miss that.
could you have lived and not know what grits are? You're coming back and having breakfast with us, and you're gonna have grits. Um, that's my one claim to fame about jazz, and like that. So that basically got me like, okay, I need to listen to jazz for the rest of my life because this music's amazing.
I particularly, my thing is the really funky stuff, like you know, a lot of bands that people don't know, but if you were to do it to bands that people do know, it'd be like, Herbie and the Headhunters kind of stuff. Um, and yeah, so the crossover with funk and improvising for me is the big thing.
You know that in the UK, when people think of jazz, have you watched the Far Show, the UK old sketch
No,
comedy show?
no.
Have you never seen that? Oh, it's okay. That's your homework. You need to watch the Far Show.
Okay.
Right, and they have
I found
like
so.
the guy, the jazz TV presenter, presenting who's going to be the next band that are playing, and he says like the really long name, and then they start playing, and it's just the worst sounding music, like of
Right.
noise, and he's going nice, smooth.
Oh, I hate smooth jazz.
And that's what people think of in the UK when they think of jazz. They
Yeah.
think of this sketch show's
No,
interpretation
I
of
like
it.
the jazz where people are sweaty and dancing and like, it's like going down. I go to a lot of New York shows and stuff, and it's a different world of jazz than the sort of golf clap jazz. So uh, cool. Well, I got to get going.
Yeah, I love how we start well with the marketing, then we get into the Unity rant,
Yeah.
and how they've been trying to gaslight everyone.
Oh yeah.
Then we get back into the bit of the marketing. Then we go on a tangent about music. Although this time it wasn't about you mooning anyone and having your parties on
Oh,
the.
did I tell that story? Oh, that's
Uh,
my biggest regret in life.
have you got 30 seconds to tell everyone who hasn't heard it before?
Oh, sure. Last year I was staying at a place I go to every summer. It's like a house on an island in the middle of the ocean with no land. And James Taylor came by. And the tradition of the house is when people get close to the house, boats get close, you moon them. And so we finished talking and stuff, and he went downstairs and left on a boat and was waving back at us. We were all on the roof, and I resisted my instinct to moon him, and I will now forever regret it.
Oh my word!
I should have just mooned him.
Should have just done it. Should have just got it out. It's for a full moon.
I mean, it's the tradition of the house, so you know.
You got to when you can't break tradition. That's the problem.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I should have done it. Now I'm going to go to my grave thinking about it.
Well, I'll tell you what. You can moon me, and I'll pretend to be James Taylor.
Nah, not the same. He
But you
lives
were-
right by that house, so I could go moon him, but then that would just be weird and stalky. You know?
But you were there again this year. Did he not come by?
We go there every year for like a week, and we all hang out, play music, and cook food, and it's a amazing time.
Who did you moon this year, though? Who did you moon this time? Was it
Lots of boaters. In fact, we mooned this one boat. It was a what do you call it? A bachelorette party, and so we moon them because they got too close, and then the boat's headed away at this point, and they make the boat turn back around, and they come back, and they were just like butts, 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 you know, like screaming at the top of their lung from the boat. So we all just flashed them and mooned them again. But yeah, that place is it's just like one of the wonders of the world. It's nobody would let you build something like that ever again, and it's just the coolest. So
Oh my word! Well, I know where my holiday invitation is next year. I will be with Jason doing some hairy mooning, no
right,
doubt. Mate, thank you so much for coming on
Yeah,
and doing your
anytime.
marketing.
Yeah, my marketing for the year. I'm done.
And thank you, Roland, for the gifts, you beautiful badger. And thank you, Jace, for the gifts, you beautiful
Yeah,
badger.
and I will post this in the chat when you're done.
Awesome. Mate, you go and enjoy yourself.
Right.
Tomorrow, Jace, I'll be with Cincy Studios.
Cool.
So I hope to catch
We
you
have
in the chat.
integrations for a lot of their stuff already in Microverse. So if
Oh,
you have it installed, you can just build scenes at unbelievable pace.
awesome. Microverse and Cincy Studios, the match made in heaven. All right, buddy. You head yourself off.
See you later.
Catch you later, pal. What a beautiful badger. Oh, my word.
If you want to see more of my crazy videos, click on the left side of your screen now, and down below there's that big juicy subscribe button, and right next to it is the magic bell that if you click it, it will tell you if I've got a new video coming out. Till next time.